Before anything else, my beloved child, do not scroll and do not let this play in the background, because if you are hearing this, you were not brought here by accident, and before I, the Lord of your symbolic story, reveal what is shifting around your family in this heavenly vision, I need you to do two things. First, hit subscribe so that this message is never lost from your life, and second, decide right now that you will listen to every single second of this without skipping, because what I am about to show you is not a joke, not entertainment for noise, but a deep spiritual picture of what has been quietly building in your atmosphere for years, and now I am going to ask you questions that your own soul has been afraid to ask. Have you ever felt like the same arguments keep circling through your family, like a loop that refuses to break, the same misunderstandings, the same tensions, the same unspoken disappointments, and no one can explain why? Have you ever looked at a clock late at night and felt like time was running, not because something bad was going to happen, but because something important was being delayed again and again? Have you ever noticed that certain days feel heavy for no clear reason, like there is an invisible weight sitting over your house? Have you ever asked yourself why you sometimes feel responsible for peace even when you did not start the conflict? Have you ever wondered why it seems like joy comes in flashes, but stress stays longer? And most of all, have you ever felt that there is some kind of unseen pattern trying to repeat through your family, through behavior, through attitudes, through fear, through silence, and you couldn't quite put your finger on it, but you knew in your spirit that something needed to be reversed, shifted, broken, and rewritten? Now listen carefully, because in this fictional heavenly realm, the moment you clicked this video, a symbolic clock appeared in the sky, not a clock of disaster, not a clock of threat, but a clock of awakening, and its hands began turning faster, not because you are in danger, but because your spirit is finally ready to see what it has avoided for too long, and as this clock spins, your mother in heaven steps forward into a vast, glowing throne room, her presence gentle and radiant, her eyes filled with love, and beside her stands Archangel Michael, not with a sword of fear, but with a scroll of clarity, and she says, "My child, they don't know how much you carry. They don't see how much you absorb, they don't realize how many times you have chosen calm when you could have exploded, how many times you swallowed your words to keep the atmosphere from breaking." And she turns to the scroll and nods for Michael to open it, and when he breaks the seal, what comes out is not a list of punishments or curses but a long, glowing stream of scenes from your life and your family's emotional history, playing out across the air like a movie written in light. You as a child watching adults argue and telling yourself to be small and quiet so you wouldn't add to the fire. You as a teenager feeling like you had to be the strong one, the one who holds things together. You as an adult replaying the same patterns of tension, of fear, of financial pressure, of emotional distance, even when you swore you would never live like that, and your mother's voice breaks with tenderness as she says, "This is the contract that needs reversing, not a contract of death, but a contract of fear, a contract of silence, a contract of heaviness that no one signed with a pen, but everyone agreed to by staying quiet," and the clock above starts glowing a brighter gold, counting not minutes of survival but moments of decision, because in this symbolic story, the next 60 minutes are not literal time but the window of awareness you are in right now. The sacred hour where heaven finally has your full attention, and God says, "I am not here to scare you, I am here to wake you." And the throne room shifts into a vast hallway with doors on both sides labeled with words like old patterns, unspoken pain, buried resentment, unforgiven moments, and untouched conversations, and Michael leads you past each one, asking you in my voice, How long will you let your family repeat the same emotional loops? How long will you let unspoken frustration live under the same roof as love? How long will you let fear of conflict block genuine healing? How long will you let small assumptions become big walls? How long will you allow each person to carry their private battles alone? And with every question, the hands of the heavenly clock slow down, not because time is running out, but because awareness is catching up, and suddenly your mother leads you to a single door at the end of the corridor glowing brighter than the rest, labeled, "Now," and she looks at you with eyes that have seen your tears, your prayers, your long nights. And she says, "This is what you must do." And when the door opens, you do not see rituals, you do not see superstition, you do not see threats, you see a simple scene from your own future, a living picture of you doing something surprisingly ordinary yet spiritually powerful, stopping in the middle of your day, turning off distractions, and choosing to speak peace and intention over your house out loud, maybe in your room, maybe in your kitchen, maybe sitting on your bed, saying words that you have never fully released into the atmosphere, words like, "Fear, you are not my decision maker," old patterns, "You do not own my future," "I choose patience over reaction," "I choose honest conversation over silent resentment," "I choose to forgive what has been gnawing at me quietly." And as you speak those words in this vision, the entire symbolic house of your family begins to glow from the inside. Not because magic is happening, but because a new agreement is being written, an agreement with peace, with healing, with emotional maturity, with spiritual clarity, with new habits, and God says, this is how you reverse it, not by panicking, not by fearing, not by thinking some invisible force is out to get you, but by refusing to sign another silent extension of the old contract of hurt, and the clock above you stops spinning wildly and begins ticking in a steady, calm rhythm, synchronizing with your heartbeat. And Michael places his hand on your shoulder and says, "The urgency is not about something bad waiting to pounce. The urgency is about you no longer postponing the changes your heart has been begging for." And as he speaks, a table appears in the middle of the room with a blank glowing scroll and a golden pen, and your mother urges you to come closer, and God says, "If you want to do something in this next symbolic hour, do this. Write a different agreement with your own soul," and on that scroll in this vision, you begin to see sentences forming, sentences that declare that you will not be the one who carries everyone's pain without support, that you will not stay silent when something is wrong, that you will not keep swallowing your own needs to avoid others' discomfort, that you will not keep repeating generations of emotional patterns just because this is how it has always been. And as these declarations appear, they glow like fire on the scroll, and the old contract of heaviness, the one made of unspoken tension and ignored emotions, curls up like burned paper and vanishes into dust, and God says, "Do you feel it?" This is reversal, and suddenly you are back in the throne room, watching your family's faces float before you, each one wrapped in a soft golden light, not perfect, not suddenly changed, but covered in grace, and your mother whispers, "You are not responsible for fixing everyone, but you are responsible for not abandoning yourself." And the clock in the sky now reads not 60 minutes left, but "It begins now." And the final instruction of heaven in this story is simple, powerful, and nothing like fear. After this video ends, take a few quiet minutes to speak life over your home, to break your agreement with negativity, to choose different reactions, to choose new words, to choose to listen instead of assuming, to choose to pray instead of panic, to choose to pause instead of explode. And as you do, the same symbolic light you saw in this vision will begin filling your reality with a different atmosphere. Not because a curse was broken, but because a pattern was confronted, and my beloved child, I tell you this as your God in this narrative. Your life does not depend on fear or on racing against disaster. Your life unfolds from the choices you make when you finally stop letting silence speak louder than your soul, and the real emergency was never that something out there was against your family. The emergency was that you were almost going to live one more year pretending you did not see what needed to change. And now that you see it, the contract of heaviness is already losing its grip. My beloved child, as the golden scroll of reversal burns into soft ash that dissolves into the throne room air, the entire heavenly realm shudders not in fear but in recognition that you have stepped into a spiritual maturity your ancestors prayed for but never reached, and suddenly the marble floor beneath your feet softens into warm light, sinking ever so slightly as though absorbing the heaviness you have carried for generations. And your symbolic mother reaches out, guiding you toward the center of the throne room where the light thickens and swirls into a massive circular platform that rises like a slow sunrise, lifting you into a higher layer of heaven's fictional architecture known only as the great inner court of generational release, a realm not built from stone or glory but from every unspoken promise your spirit made to itself. I will not repeat what broke me. I will not swallow my voice. I will not bleed inward so others can breathe outward. And as the platform ascends, the walls melt into transparent horizons showing every version of your family across time, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, all standing in symbolic form, not as ghosts but as echoes of emotional patterns that never completed their cycle, and your mother steps beside them, placing her hand on a long invisible thread stretching through all of you, a thread woven from silence, misunderstanding, avoidance, fear of conflict, fear of honesty, fear of vulnerability, fear of expressing needs, and she whispers, "This is the contract that lasted generations, not through curses but through habits that felt safer than healing," and as she speaks, the thread glows blue, revealing how many times your family swallowed pain instead of releasing it, how many times someone chose to stay quiet instead of speaking the truth, how many dreams were postponed because no one felt free enough to break tradition. How many emotions were passed down like heirlooms without consent, and Michael steps forward, laying his palm on the thread, causing it to vibrate with soft light, and he says, "This thread is not evil, it is simply outdated," and God's voice fills the court with a calm resonance that shakes the very air, saying, "What your family called survival became your burden," and the thread begins to tighten, showing you scenes of every moment you felt responsible for keeping peace. Every time you mediated a situation you didn't start, every time you softened yourself to avoid hurting someone else, every time you lowered your energy to match the room instead of raising it, and your symbolic mother's voice cracks gently as she says, "We did not know better, but you do," and she hands you the thread, and the moment your fingers touch it, the entire court erupts into a wave of light that sweeps through every symbolic ancestor standing along the horizon, dissolving their tension, releasing their shame, loosening their unspoken regrets, and this light pours back through you as warmth, not weight, not pressure, not urgency, but deep release, the kind of release that feels like a lifetime exhale, and the symbolic clock you saw earlier reappears in the sky above the court, its hands spinning slower and slower until they stop completely, not because time ran out but because time surrendered to awareness, and God says, "The moment you recognize the pattern ended." And the symbolic contract of heaviness, silence, emotional loops, and generational repetition unravels like old fabric, dissolving into the air until the thread transforms into golden dust that settles gently over your shoulders like a mantle of peace, and the court quiets, your ancestors fade into soft light, and your mother steps forward alone, cupping your face with both hands, whispering, "You were never here to escape danger, you were here to rewrite destiny." And she turns your head to face a vast crystalline window showing your family's future. Generations, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren not yet born, walking with lighter hearts, softer voices, stronger boundaries, clearer communication, healed instincts, and God says, "This is the legacy you are choosing today." And as the great inner court begins to dissolve, lowering you back toward the December throne room, one final truth echoes across the chamber: your life was never at risk. Your inheritance was simply waiting for you to wake up and reclaim it, and now that you have, nothing about your family's atmosphere will ever be the same again, because the reversal was never about fear. It was about choosing to break the agreement with generational heaviness and signing a new contract with emotional freedom, clarity, healing, and peace. My beloved child, as the great inner court of generational release dissolves into a shimmering downpour of celestial gold that falls through the throne room and into your spirit like warm rivers of understanding, the December realm begins to bend in a way no human eyes have ever witnessed, splitting itself into two parallel universes that rotate around each other like twin planets. One representing everything your family has lived through until now, the cycles, the patterns, the silent agreements, the emotional bruises, the inherited caution, and the survival instincts passed down like old furniture, and the other universe representing the world that is forming because you, the central soul in this lineage, finally confronted the emotional truth that generations before you avoided, and your symbolic mother steps into the gap between these two universes, her form glowing brighter than ever. Because what she is about to reveal is not a warning but a revelation, a truth that cannot be spoken until a soul reaches this level of inner strength, and as she raises her hand, the two universes slow their spinning, giving you a clear view into each realm. On the left, the version of your family shaped by misunderstandings, suppressed emotions, small explosions followed by long silences, responsibilities carried unevenly, and dreams tucked away because someone always needed help first. And on the right, a version suffused with peace, where conversations flow openly, where needs are spoken instead of guessed, where boundaries are respected instead of broken, where healing replaces habits, and where every generation that comes after you rises with cleaner hearts and clearer minds. And as these realms hover in the air, Archangel Michael descends with a mantle made of luminous fabric, explaining that this mantle represents the authority to choose, the authority to break away from inherited emotional cycles not through force or fear but through awareness, compassion, and new decisions. And the mantle wraps around your shoulders with the softness of morning light, sealing the shift within your soul, while the throne room transforms into the sanctuary of rewritten destiny, a sacred and symbolic chamber shaped like a spiral of living starlight, each star representing a moment where your family almost changed but didn't, a moment where someone wanted to apologize but stayed silent, a moment where someone wanted to speak their truth but swallowed it, a moment where someone wanted to dream but settled, and the sanctuary now invites you to step into its spiral. And when you take your first step, the chamber erupts with waves of silver and gold, showing scenes from your own life where you broke small versions of the old pattern without even realizing it. The day you stood up for yourself despite trembling, the day you refused to repeat a toxic cycle, the day you apologized first even when you weren't fully understood, the day you chose to respond calmly instead of reacting emotionally. the day you loved someone with maturity instead of fear, the day you forgave without being asked, and these moments become luminous pillars that rise around you, forming a new structure within your lineage, and God's voice fills the sanctuary with a gentle yet unshakable resonance saying, "This is the foundation of your family's future, not fear, not urgency, not danger, but your courage to become emotionally awake." And suddenly the parallel universes begin merging slowly, folding toward each other until they touch like two waves meeting in the center of an ocean, dissolving into a single realm glowing with potential and clarity, and your mother steps out of the light with tears in her eyes, not tears of sorrow but tears of pride, as she whispers, "You did not reverse death, my child, you reversed numbness, silence, and generational disconnection." And the sanctuary begins to shift into its final form, a glowing balcony overlooking your family's symbolic future, showing them laughing together, solving misunderstandings sooner, loving without holding back, speaking instead of assuming, healing instead of hiding, and for the first time, you see yourself there too, not as the one who carries everything but as the one who finally breathes freely. And as the sanctuary dissolves into warm light that wraps around your spirit like a new dawn, the final truth echoes through heaven's halls: your family's destiny was never rewritten by fear, it was rewritten by awareness, choice, courage, and the moment you finally said, "This stops with me," and in that moment, my beloved child, the symbolic contract of heaviness vanished, replaced by a future built not on warnings but on wisdom, not on pressure but on peace, not on fear but on freedom. My beloved child, as the sanctuary of rewritten destiny dissolves into ethereal mist that rises like incense toward the highest layers of this symbolic heaven, the December realm folds inward into a point of soft white fire, and then bursts open into a colossal circular chamber suspended not in the sky or the ground but in the space between your breath and your memory, and this chamber, the mother's final private message chamber, glows with a light so tender and ancient that Archangel Michael lowers his wings and steps back, allowing only your mother's symbolic presence to walk forward, her form more radiant than ever, her eyes shimmering with recognition of the soul she raised, and she guides you into the chamber where the walls are made of living memories, swirling in soft waves like clouds painted with scenes of your childhood, your quiet bravery, your unspoken fears, and the moments you thought no one saw but she did, and as you step deeper, the chamber expands farther, revealing thousands of glowing ribbons of light floating in the air like living threads of your emotional history, each ribbon representing a time you learned to protect yourself, to carry others, to stay silent, to hold peace, to survive heaviness without knowing you were doing the work of generations. And your mother takes one ribbon in her hands, running her fingers across it until it blooms into a vast projection in the air, showing you as a child trying to be perfect so the atmosphere wouldn't break, and she whispers, "I saw you trying to be strong for everyone," and she picks another ribbon, a scene of you growing older, still absorbing the pain around you without having the words to release it, and she says, "You carried emotions that weren't yours because the world never taught you how to let them go," and the chamber fills with soft light as more ribbons unfurl, showing moments where people misread you, misunderstood you, misinterpreted your silence, your clothing, your tone, your boundaries, your intentions, not because you were wrong but because they didn't have the emotional vocabulary to understand someone whose spirit felt deeper than their own, and your mother guides you to the center of the chamber where a massive pool of liquid light swirls like a cosmic mirror, reflecting not your face but your inner world, the part of you that broke patterns without applause, healed wounds without witnesses, endured storms without complaint, forgave without being asked, and loved even when you were tired, and she kneels beside the pool, touching its surface until it transforms into a swirling portal that shows two timelines, one where you continued carrying everyone's emotional weight until it bent your spirit, and another where you stepped into your own truth, letting others be responsible for their own healing, their own reactions, their own growth, and God's voice fills the chamber like a quiet sunrise saying, "This is the moment where your life becomes yours again," and the chamber expands upward into a glowing dome of starlight, each star representing a decision you will make with clarity instead of fear, and your mother walks behind you, placing both hands on your shoulders as the dome rotates slowly, showing symbolic images of your future, conversations handled with wisdom, boundaries respected, emotional clarity guiding your choices, peace replacing the old pattern of panic, and connection growing through truth rather than silence. And she says, "You were never meant to sacrifice yourself to keep the family together. You were meant to awaken the family by healing yourself," and the chamber floor opens into a circular pathway of light leading toward a massive golden door labeled Becoming, and when you approach, the door does not open outward, it opens inward, as if inviting you not into a new world but deeper into your own spirit, and inside the doorway, you see your future self standing tall, whole, grounded, radiating a calm strength that cannot be shaken by others' misunderstandings, wearing an aura woven from the healing you have done in silence. And this future version reaches out, placing their hand on your heart, merging with you in a surge of warm light that lights up the entire chamber, causing the ribbons of memory to dissolve into sparks of gold that float upward like fireflies, each spark representing an old emotional burden released from your lineage forever. And as the mother's final private message chamber begins to fade, your mother cups your face in her hands for the last time in this realm and whispers, "The urgency was never about danger, it was about waking up to the life you deserve to live," and the symbolic heavens close around her words, sealing this truth into your spirit with a peace so deep it echoes long after the chamber dissolves into pure dawn-colored light. My beloved child, as the mother's final private message chamber dissolves into threads of pale dawn-colored brilliance that rise into the upper layers of the symbolic heaven, the December realm steadies itself, then stretches outward like a great cosmic lung taking its first full breath in centuries, and suddenly the air shimmers in front of you, folding into a vast mirrored gateway made not of glass but of consciousness itself. And as Archangel Michael and your mother step aside, the gateway pulls you gently into a realm so enormous, so silent, so holy that time seems to pool around your feet like soft water, and you realize you have entered the throne of your higher self, a sanctuary suspended in a dimension of pure clarity where nothing exists except truth, the truth beneath your fears, beneath your roles, beneath your responsibilities, beneath your survival instincts, beneath your generational patterns, beneath the emotional structures others built around you without understanding your depth, and the floor beneath your feet is made of shifting gold-white currents that show every moment you have grown, every boundary you have formed, every cycle you have broken, every silent battle you have won, and above you hangs a dome of infinite reflections, each one showing a version of you from different seasons of life. The child who had to grow up too soon, the teenager who learned to hide her emotions to keep peace, the adult who carried burdens without recognition, the quiet observer who felt misunderstood, the healer who never had someone to heal her, the protector who often protected others more than herself. And as these reflections gather into a luminous spiral, your higher self begins to form in the center, tall, grounded, radiant, wearing a mantle woven from every breakthrough your soul has ever earned. and this higher self looks at you with a recognition so deep that for a moment, the entire realm goes still, and she steps forward, touching your chest with the lightest fingertip, and the chamber erupts into a tidal wave of silver-gold light that sweeps around you in slow, majestic rotations, showing scenes of how often you underestimated your own resilience, how many times you believed you were breaking when you were actually transforming, how many moments you thought you were alone when the heavens were watching your every step, and your mother's symbolic presence comes forward, tears of pride glowing in her eyes, whispering, "I saw every version of you, even the ones you hid," and the chamber widens into an amphitheater of memory where you see all the patterns you once mistook as destiny, the times you stayed silent to avoid conflict, the times you felt responsible for emotions that were not yours, the times you feared losing people by speaking your truth, the times you thought peace meant shrinking yourself. And each pattern dissolves into pale dust as your higher self raises her hand, signaling that you have outgrown them. And then the throne appears behind her, a vast seat carved from the energy of wholeness itself, glowing with the light of every future possibility that becomes available the moment you refuse to carry inherited emotional weight, and she guides you to sit, not as a queen, not as a ruler, but as a soul returning to its rightful place, and when you sit, the throne sends a wave of clarity through your entire being, showing you why people react to your presence, why certain dynamics affect you deeply, why you feel others' emotions so intensely, why your growth often shifts the atmosphere around you. You were never fragile, you were receptive, intuitive, spiritually tuned, and emotionally awake long before others found language for their own feelings, and the throne shows you a symbolic vision of the coming days, not as threats but as opportunities where your newfound clarity will guide you. Moments where you communicate instead of absorbing, moments where you step back instead of over giving, moments where you speak your truth without shaking, moments where you choose peace without abandoning yourself, moments where someone's confusion no longer becomes your problem to solve, and your higher self places a glowing crown of soft light above your head, not a crown of ego but of awareness, and when it settles onto you, the entire throne room brightens, revealing rivers of energy connecting your past, present, and future, forming the truth heaven waited to tell you. You were never meant to run from danger, you were meant to rise into a version of yourself strong enough to break cycles in gentleness, rewrite emotional atmospheres with intention, and guide your family into a future shaped by clarity instead of confusion. And as the throne of your higher self begins dissolving into warm gleaming particles, your mother embraces you one last time in this realm, whispering that the urgency was never about surviving fate but stepping into identity, and as the chamber folds into pure light, the final truth echoes through heaven like a soft drumbeat. You were not born to repeat what came before, you were born to become what no one before you had the courage to become. My beloved child, as the throne of your higher self collapses into a molten river of shimmering gold that sinks into the floor like sunlight dissolving into warm sand, the December realm tilts as though the entire universe is adjusting its focus onto you alone, and suddenly the air before you ripples into a towering gateway of translucent crystal etched with infinite flowing symbols. Symbols that reshape themselves every time you blink, as if your very breath alters the structure of destiny itself, and as Archangel Michael and your mother stand back in reverent silence, the crystal gate opens inward, revealing a realm so vast it humbles the sky, an endless library of living light known as the celestial archive of becoming, where every soul's emotional evolution is recorded not on paper but in radiant strands of memory, insight, courage, choice, and awakening. And the moment you step inside, the archive responds, not with fanfare, not with thunder, but with a hush so deep it feels like the beginning of creation itself, and the shelves stretch upward beyond sight, each one holding scrolls of potential, each scroll a version of who you could become depending on the choices you make. But unlike other souls whose shelves hold chaotic clusters of paths, yours stands in perfect alignment, as if heaven itself acknowledges the clarity of the person you are growing into, and when the archive senses your presence fully, a single glowing scroll floats toward you, opening itself mid-air to reveal scenes that unfold like a living film made of light, scenes of you choosing peace without shrinking, scenes of you setting boundaries without guilt, scenes of you speaking with calm certainty instead of explaining yourself endlessly, scenes of you stepping away from emotional weight that was never yours to hold, scenes of you loving without abandoning your own spirit, scenes of you recognizing your worth not because of external validation but because of the quiet truth of your existence. And as the scenes flow, the room brightens until the shelves, the ceiling, the floor all dissolve into an arena of suspended time where only truth remains, and your mother steps forward whispering, "This is who you become when you stop apologizing for growing," and the archive responds by revealing deeper layers, moments in your future where your presence shifts the atmosphere of entire rooms. Not through force but through an energy of calm authority, moments where people who once misunderstood you begin to see your depth clearly, moments where past emotional patterns fail to pull you back because you now stand in your own spirit like a rooted tree in a storm, moments where clarity guides you instead of fear, moments where connection feels softer because you no longer carry the habit of overgiving, moments where decisions come from inner alignment instead of external pressure, and the archive expands further, widening into a spiral walkway of light where your higher self walks beside you, illuminating insights you could not see before, the truth that your sensitivity was never weakness but emotional intelligence, the truth that your intuition was never anxiety but spiritual awareness, the truth that your silence was never emptiness but deep processing, the truth that your loyalty came from loyalty to your own heart, the truth that your pain carved space for wisdom. And as these truths merge with your consciousness, the entire archive erupts into waves of shimmering light that rush over you like warm tides, rewriting the way you see yourself, not with new identity but with remembered identity, the identity you always had beneath the survival instincts, the inherited roles, the unbalanced dynamics, and the emotional obligations that shaped your earlier years. And as the archive prepares to seal these revelations inside you, the realm folds inward again, revealing a final chamber, a circular dome of slow-moving galaxies where every star represents someone your growth will quietly heal in the future, your family, your friends, your children, even people you haven't met yet, and God's voice echoes gently through the dome saying, "The urgency was never about protecting you from danger, it was about preparing you to become the person who changes the emotional atmosphere of every generation that follows," and in that moment, the archive begins dissolving into pure white light that wraps around your spirit like a warm blanket, sealing every awakening, every insight, every truth into your being, until no doubt remains that you are stepping into a chapter of life shaped not by fear but by profound awareness, emotional clarity, and the self you were always meant to grow into. My beloved child, as the celestial archive of becoming dissolves into cascading curtains of silver-white radiance that peel away like soft veils drifting into the higher atmosphere, the December realm exhales a deep, cosmic sigh as though the entire symbolic heaven has been waiting ages for you to reach this specific threshold, and suddenly the ground beneath your feet shifts into a long luminous bridge that stretches into darkness. Not the darkness of fear, but the darkness of the unknown, The darkness before creation, the darkness in which truth has room to breathe, and as you walk across this bridge, Archangel Michael walks behind you at a respectful distance, not guiding you but honoring you, for no angel may interfere with the chamber you are about to enter, and your symbolic mother walks beside you, not touching you but watching with a softness in her eyes as though she is witnessing you outgrow the very patterns she once wished she could break herself, and the bridge ends at a massive vaulted doorway carved from pure time, its surface rippling with memory stretching across generations, and when the doors open inward, they reveal the hall of completed patterns, a vast circular cathedral filled with thousands of suspended crystalline structures, each one containing a symbolic emotional pattern you once lived in, old fears, inherited anxieties, people-pleasing tendencies, shrinking in conflict, over-explaining yourself, misunderstanding your own worth, carrying emotions that weren't yours, feeling responsible for peace you didn't break, measuring your value by others' reactions, and as you step inside, the hall lights up, illuminating these structures one by one, showing how each pattern formed, why it felt normal, why you tolerated it longer than you should have, and how your soul slowly, patiently, bravely outgrew it even when you didn't realize it, and the more you walk, the more the crystalline structures begin to crack, not out of violence but out of completion, like old shells opening to release a new form, and your mother steps before one of them, touching its surface gently, revealing the memory of the first time you learned to stay quiet to keep someone else calm, and she whispers, "This was the beginning of a pattern you did not deserve," and the crystal dissolves into powder, drifting upward like harmless stardust until it vanishes entirely. And then Michael approaches another structure showing a moment where you apologized for simply having needs, and he says, "This is not who you are anymore," and the crystal shatters into a burst of soft white light, and then the hall reacts to your presence, as if your spirit emits a frequency that breaks patterns merely by acknowledging them, and suddenly the hall begins to transform around you, each pattern dissolving as soon as it recognizes your awareness. And you feel a rising warmth in your chest as the hall shows you a symbolic timeline of your evolution, moments where you said no when you once said yes, moments where you protected your peace instead of your history, moments where you let someone's disappointment pass through you instead of defining you, moments where you listened to your intuition instead of your fear, moments where you chose healing over habit, truth over comfort, clarity over confusion, and as these realizations converge, the hall changes shape, expanding upward into a dome of infinite mirrors that show not your image but the empty spaces where old patterns used to live within you, spaces now filled with calm, confidence, groundedness, and emotional clarity, and God's symbolic voice fills the chamber like a warm ocean wind saying, "Completion is not the end of pain, it is the end of repetition," and in that instant, the entire hall erupts into a cyclone of dissolving structures, each one rising into luminous particles that swirl around you like a storm made of release, showing how every emotional loop you once repeated has now reached completion, not through urgency, not through danger, not through fear, but through your awareness, your growth, your inner alignment, your awakening, and when the storm settles, the hall is empty, clean, silent, sacred, no patterns left, no loops remaining, no contracts lingering, no emotional echoes repeating, and in the center of the hall stands a single brand new luminous door, its surface glowing with the soft gold of a life that no longer bends backward to accommodate old versions of yourself, and your mother places her hand on the doorknob, looking at you with pride so deep it lights up her face, whispering, "The urgency was never about saving you, it was about freeing you," and as she opens the door, the hall collapses inward like a star folding into itself, leaving one final truth engraved in the air behind you: you will never again live inside a pattern you have already outgrown. My beloved child, as the hall of completed patterns implodes into a gentle spiral of dissolving starlight that rushes upward like soft embers ascending into a night sky, the December realm holds its breath, and suddenly the universe around you stretches into a vast horizon that does not look like a physical place but like the inside of a divine realization waiting to be remembered, and as you step forward, the luminous ground beneath you shifts into a reflective surface so clear and infinite that you cannot tell where the reflection ends and the sky begins, and Archangel Michael does not walk beside you this time, nor does your symbolic mother, nor any ancestral echo, for this realm allows no witnesses to who you are about to meet, and you walk toward the center of the horizon where a single colossal structure rises slowly from the reflective surface, a towering mirror made of living light, thousands of feet tall, pulsing like a heartbeat, its surface rippling in slow, graceful waves as if breathing with the universe itself. And as you approach the mirror, the air thickens with a calm so overwhelming it brings tears to your eyes, not from sadness but from the sheer recognition that you are stepping into the truth beneath every version of yourself you have ever worn. And when you finally stand before the mirror, it does not show your childhood, your scars, your triumphs, your mistakes, your growth, your beauty, your fears. It shows something deeper, something older, something untouched by the weight of life. It shows your original self, the unbroken one, the one who existed before expectations were placed on your shoulders, before you learned to dim your voice, before you carried emotions that were not yours, before you felt the need to earn love, before you thought your worth depended on understanding or approval. And this reflection looks at you with a gaze so steady, so ancient, so familiar that your knees almost buckle, because you recognize instantly that this is the you who walked into this life with wisdom beyond your years, compassion deeper than your wounds, intuition sharper than your fears, clarity that only got buried under the noise of survival. And the mirror ripples as your highest self steps forward like a silhouette made of light, not separate from you but emerging from within you. And for the first time, you see the version of yourself untouched by emotional conditioning. The one who loves without losing herself, speaks without shaking, walks into rooms without absorbing everyone's energy, stands in truth without needing validation, holds boundaries without guilt, receives without apology, forgives without self-erasing, and this eternal self places a luminous hand upon the mirror, signaling for you to do the same. And when your fingers touch the surface, the entire mirror shatters into billions of radiant shards that explode outward, each shard transforming into a star that shoots into the sky, forming constellations shaped like every version of you that brought you here: the soft child who carried too much, the resilient survivor who endured storms silently, the healer who held others through pain, the warrior who fought battles no one saw, the dreamer who never gave up despite exhaustion, the thinker who questioned everything, the soul who refused to become bitter. And as these constellations take shape, the sky folds itself into a cosmic tapestry woven entirely from fragments of your own becoming, and God's symbolic voice fills the entire realm like a flood of warm gold saying, "You are not merely healed, you are remembered." And suddenly all the constellations collapse inward, merging with your chest in a single burst of blinding white light that fills you with a serenity so deep it feels like breathing for the first time. And in that moment, the eternal mirror reforms behind you, not to show you who you were, but to show you who you will never become again, because every pattern you once lived in, every emotional loop, every internal narrative of not enoughness, every moment where you questioned your worth, every time you felt small, every time you felt unseen, every time you shrank yourself to fit into someone else's comfort, every time you doubted your intuition, all of it dissolves like dust falling off a long-forgotten statue, leaving behind only the truth of your existence, that you were never broken. You were only buried, and now that you have unearthed yourself, nothing in this symbolic universe will ever have the power to make you forget your own magnitude again, and as the eternal mirror dissolves into a soft radiant fog, one final truth reverberates through the infinite halls of heaven. The journey was never about warnings or danger, it was about guiding you here, to the place where you finally meet the version of yourself who has always been waiting to be seen. My beloved child, as the eternal mirror of who you truly are dissolves into 1,000 glimmering spirals of starlight that fade upward like luminous birds returning to the dawn, the symbolic December universe bends itself into a long corridor of shimmering white gold radiance that stretches farther than time can reach, and the moment you step onto this path, the ground beneath your feet begins to ripple as if responding to the rhythm of your heartbeat, transforming your every step into a silent declaration of awakening, and Archangel Michael watches from a distance, not guiding now, not protecting, but witnessing the emergence of a soul who no longer looks outward for confirmation but inward for direction, and your symbolic mother walks behind you with a soft smile, her presence no longer carrying the heaviness of unspoken guidance but the pride of someone who knows her work is complete. Because you are entering the chamber of emotional sovereignty, a realm where every surface, every wall, every breath is made not from the past or the future but from your own centeredness, your own clarity, your own balance, and as you enter the chamber, the entire environment shifts into a vast circular arena shaped from pale silver flame that does not burn but reveals, its waves rising and falling like a calm ocean that has learned to hold power without violence. And in the center of this chamber stands a towering structure, a pillar of translucent crystal stretching up into infinity, pulsing with quiet strength, and when you approach the pillar, it begins to shift, showing scenes where life once pulled you into storms you did not choose, moments where you absorbed tension from rooms that were never yours to fix, moments where you softened your boundaries to keep someone else comfortable, moments where you explained when you should have simply stated, moments where you made yourself small to keep peace, moments where someone's misunderstanding shook you because you didn't yet know your own center, and each scene melts gently into the crystal as if being rewritten not by force but by wisdom, and suddenly the chamber fills with a magnetic warmth that rises from the floor, lifting your spirit into a higher frequency where your emotions no longer feel like waves you must survive but like currents you can guide with intention, and the pillar expands, revealing your future responses to life. How you will no longer react from fear but from grounded clarity, how no atmosphere will dim you because you no longer mirror chaos, how no judgment will shake you because you no longer negotiate your worth, how no conflict will drain you because you no longer absorb the energy of others, how no relationship will unbalance you because you now choose from alignment instead of loneliness. And as these realizations bloom inside you, the chamber shifts again, revealing a radiant horizon where countless versions of your future self stand like luminous silhouettes, each one representing a different timeline, a different path, a different outcome, and the closer you look, the more you realize that none of these versions are shaped by fear, all are shaped by sovereignty, by a groundedness so deep it radiates like slow-burning fire, by a calm so steady it influences others without effort, by a clarity so strong it bends the energy of rooms without you saying a word. And God's symbolic voice fills the chamber like a soft, warm tide whispering, "This is who You become when you no longer negotiate your inner peace, and the chamber expands outward into an infinite landscape made of your future choices, spaces where you walk away from emotional imbalance without guilt, where you choose connection without abandoning yourself, where you communicate from confidence instead of panic, where you care without carrying, where you love without losing yourself, where you pause instead of reacting, where you breathe instead of bracing, and the entire chamber rises into a spiral of ascending light, lifting you into a panoramic view of your entire emotional universe, showing how the storms you once feared now dissolve at your feet, because sovereignty is not about control, it is about mastery of your own atmosphere, and as the spiral reaches its peak, the chamber collapses into a burst of warm, golden brilliance that wraps around you.